Well, obviously, whenever you're looking to bring a transfer in, specifically a graduate transfer or a veteran transfer, that's what you think you're getting, is a guy that's going to be able to come in and be a starter for you or compete for a starting job at the very least. All the reports that we got, we know his high school coach. Me and Deej have known his high school coach for 20 years. He was a high school linebacker, even when he first went there, was a linebacker and then transitioned to defensive end, but was very, very well thought of. You talk to the people, at Temple, they felt like he was their best player, the most disruptive player. So, we felt fortunate to be able to get him. We thought he could have an impact. And then when he got here, we always test all those guys just like we do the freshmen, and he tested extremely well. So the one thing we've been working on is just putting a little weight on him, because he was always a little undersized at Temple. We've been able to get some weight on him and keep it on him.
James, can you talk about the job Anthony Poindexter has done? Obviously, the safety's played extremely well, and how he has kind of fit in with your staff over these last however many months.
Yeah, obviously we got a small sample size, both good and bad, so I don't like to kind of over react to things, but I'm a big Anthony Poindexter fan. I have been for a long time. Anthony was at the University of Virginia when I was at Maryland for a long time. We recruited the same area. Got a great resume as both a player and as a coach. And I've had a relationship with him and his wife for a long time. We've had conversations in the past about bringing him on board. Either it wasn't the right time for us or it wasn't the right time for him. So this worked out extremely well. He's really good with our players. Our players love him. He's been great on the staff. He's got coordinator experience. He's a regional fit from a recruiting and from an experience standpoint. So it really it checked a lot of boxes, and it's gone extremely well. So, I think his experience both coaching and playing the position has been really valuable. And so far, so good. He's obviously got here at a good time, too, where we got some experienced guys that were ready to take the next step. So far, so good.
James, today we got Keandre Lambert. You talked a lot about his emotional and mental maturity from the last year. What did that look like from your perspective, and what could his week one performance do for him moving forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of times with young players, they're very competitive. They can be emotional. And they can talk a lot as well, and he did really all three of those things. And I think in a lot of ways it was his competitive nature. But I thought it was to the point at times where it took his focus away from what he was trying to do. And he's just much more leveled. He's still playing with emotion and passion and confidence, but he's just more level. There's less, peaks and valleys. It's more kind of consistent. Which I think has been important for him. He played really good in week one. Obviously, he was a highly recruited guy that we thought a lot of when we got. He showed flashes and was able to play and start as a true freshman for us. So he's done some good things, and now it's building on it. But I think his approach, his mentality, his maturity, and just being a little bit more level, I think has been helpful for him.
How do you balance the urgency of the moment with patience of having younger players? How do you get them to develop, but also face the obstacle that you have in front of you?
Yeah, that's the challenge. Sometimes they don't understand that as well. They think they're ready, but they may not be. Or they feel like they're going to turn it on in the game, but they haven't really showed enough evidence yet in practice to build the trust of their teammates and their coaches. And that's one of the things we've talked a lot about, Ben, is I think there's a lot of value peer on peer, honesty and transparency. Veteran players telling other veteran players or younger players kind of where they're at and why. I think that's really valuable, and we're getting more of that right now. But yeah, I think you're going to have to put some of those guys on the field, and there's going to be some growing pains with it. Obviously, you got to pick and choose your spots. When's the right time to do it, and what are the right opponents to do it with? obviously having more of a traditional year this year allows you to do that with the length of the season, but we're going to need a bunch of those guys to step up, and hopefully we'll get a few more guys in the game on Saturday.
What do you envision Luketta's role being this weekend?
I'm sorry?
What do you envision Luketta's role being this weekend?
Yeah, like I said in the last press conference or in the post game, I'm not sure which one it was, but he'll play both defensive end and linebacker.
Hey, James, are there any home field disadvantages?
Home field disadvantages. I guess the couple things I would say. Defensively, obviously, the huge advantage is them not being able to typically have a cadence, which is one of the reasons, not only from talent and the way we've coached and developed, that we've been pretty usually high in sacks. But it also causes some challenges on the defensive side of the ball from a communication standpoint. They're not used to having to communicate over the noise. They don't get it in practice very often. And then obviously when you're on the road, you don't really deal with that a whole lot. So that can be a part of it. And then the other thing is it's just all the other distractions. It's taken 25 more minutes to get to the office or to get home. It's the buzz in town. It's people needing a place to stay, which can be a distraction. They got buddies coming up that need a place to stay in their dorm room or whatever it may be. This is probably a home or an away deal, but tickets are a problem. Getting their tickets in on time. All those things so that we can go to the hotel on Friday and not having to manage all these things. And when you're at home, there's just more of those things on their plate. Obviously, we have a higher percentage of friends and families in town. And if you're not careful as a young player, those things can be a distraction. And then obviously running through Beaver Stadium, as much as we've tried to get them used to it, for a lot of guys, even transfer first-year players, it's going to be a different experience. So getting them used to that. One of the guys was just asking me about the pregame music, and I'm like, I don't have, that's not on my responsibilities, I don't think. But there's just a lot of things, and if they're not careful, those things can become distractions.
James, how do you
said
game plan for
this year that mostly everyone's running the same thing offensively? Why is that? Why is it that football coaches or offensive coordinators seem to gravitate towards the same schemes and principles?
Well, I think in the old days it probably was different. And what I mean by that is even today, I think the two biggest differences is you have the option, the traditional triple option people, most of the service academies, Navy, Army. And then you obviously have the people running what I call, everybody's running similar offenses and schemes. You still have a few people, the Stanfords of the world and some others that are getting in the traditional, the Wisconsins in the world, getting in the huddle and coming out and trying to hammer people in 21 personnel and 12 personnel. But even them, they're running more spread concepts than ever before. There used to be kind of a divide in the past where, you were a Bill Walsh West Coast or you were a Don Coryell digit system. So there was kind of a divide, but it's really just kind of all blended where people are taking the best of all those different things and merging them. Everybody's running, whether it's vertical concepts or whether it's high-lows or whether it's progressions, whether it's your rub routes and pick routes, empty variations. Everybody's kind of doing those things, and when you watch tape, there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of stealing going on. People are saying, okay, these are the plays that have given them challenges. We run something very similar to that makes sense for us this week. But I think that's what happens is people have branched out of families that you've kind of grown up in and spending a lot of time of studying other people and bringing people in to talk ball and trying to take two or three things from other people's systems and adding them to you. And over time, it's kind of merged. And that was different in the NFL. You know, the NFL was very different. College was different. And that's not the case even in the NFL anymore. NFL is doing the same thing. There's probably more trickle up than ever before. It used to be trickle down. And there's usually probably one or two people out there that may be ahead of the curve or doing something really different than everybody else. And usually within a year, people have studied it or stolen it. So you'll see a little bit of that.
James, how do you game plan for a wide receiver like Justin Hall, who plays like a slot but plays 2/3 of his snaps on the outside?
Yeah, I think it's having an awareness. You know, everybody has usually on defense or on offense a couple guys that you have to be aware of. You better know where they are on every snap, whether that's a defensive end or whether that is a outside linebacker who blitzes in his coverage and has got great ball skills, or whether that's a running back or a wide receiver that's problematic, whether it was, you know, in the past, Saquon Barkley, people were going to have a plan to stop Saquon Barkley or at least limit his impact, or KJ Hamler, or I could go on and on and on. And it's the same way with him. You know, as a defense, we better know where he's at on every play because he's impactful. And what you try to do each week is you try to identify who those guys are, and then you try to limit their impact in the game.
James, how much emotion was there for Noah Kane and his family this weekend with everything going on with the hurricane and him coming back from injury finally?
Yeah, obviously, I think the 2 points you made were big. You know, missing last year and getting back for the first time and having success is awesome. And then obviously, you know, where he's from, the combination of Louisiana and Texas and what they've been battling through right now. Very emotional. His dad was at practice yesterday. His dad comes around a fair amount, and you know, mom usually makes most of the home games, so which is great. But yeah, it's been challenging, and Noah's handled it all extremely well. We try to be as supportive as we possibly can, but it'll be great, hopefully, to see mom this weekend too.
Thank you, Coach.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.